The Legion Stormblade Super Heavy Tank. The Legion Stormblade is a variant of the Imperial Army Super Heavy Tank, constructed on the Forge world of Lucius and equipped with a mighty plasma blast gun. This weapon occupies a tactical niche between the much heavier turbo laser destructor carried on the Shadow Sword and similar but lighter weapons carried on smaller vehicles. The plasma blast gun is simpler to maintain and supply than the turbo laser, giving the tank an extended operational range, and its Space Marine crew are a lot more resistant to the heat and radiation generated by its enormous reactor array than the crews of Imperial Army Stormblades. The majority of legions maintain a stock of Stormblades amongst their super heavy tank formations, although some only utilise them as legion reserves and do not commit them to the line as a matter of course. The Iron Warriors and the Iron Hands have both been known to utilise armoured vanguards comprising Stormblades, often flanked by Predators, and more recently, Sokarans. The Legion Glaive Super Heavy Special Weapons Tank. The Glaive, or Felblade as it is sometimes known, is a super heavy tank pattern related to the Felblade, but beyond the obvious surface similarities, the two tanks are very different. The reason for this divergence lies with the Glaive's primary weapon system, the fearsome and arcane Volkite carronade, a device of the Mechanicum whose design is said to originate on Mars in the wars of the Age of Strife. It was not without some acrimony that the Forge Lords agreed to the Emperor's demand for a Legion tank to be created that utilised this weapon. The need, however, was great, and the Glaive was first deployed against the Apex Exothon codified as the Catachi Diabolum, which had proved such a thorn in the Great Crusade's side. Later, the Glaive proved its worth both against the Orc hordes and the stranger Xenos monstrosities encountered as the Emperor's crusading armies penetrated the murderous zones surrounding the galactic core. The effort of constructing practicable numbers of super heavy tanks around to the Volkite carronade is considered well worth the staggering expenditure its resources required. For multiple targets, and even the largest of Xenos abominations are struck down by its ravening beam before even a portion of its energy is dissipated. The Legion Cerberus Heavy Tank Destroyer. An experimental variant based upon the Spartan chassis. The Mechanicum used the Spartan's internal capacity to mount a prototype neutron laser projector and the sizable atomactic arc reactors and radiation shielding needed to operate the weapon. The weapon technology itself had been retro-engineered from Dark Age of Technology battlefield wreckage, recovered at great cost on the Forbidden Sphere of Deep Hyades 6 by Mechanicum explorators out of Galatia, and some controversy was evident about both its provenance and safety for wider dissemination by the Mechanicum. Despite its instability, the neutron laser offered a potential rival weapon to the more common turbo laser systems found on Titans and the Shadow Sword Super Heavy Tank Destroyer, which was both more compact in size and possessed of enhanced ability to inflict collateral damage. Shortly before the outbreak of the Horus Heresy, preliminary detachments of the Cerberus had been delivered into the service of a number of Space Marine legions for comprehensive battlefield testing and trial, and were soon pressed to turn their destructive power against the Imperium's own war machines, rather than that of the alien. The Legion Thunderhawk Transporter. The Thunderhawk Transporter is a support variant of the standard Thunderhawk gunship that has recently entered into service with the Space Marine Legions. It may be used to quickly deploy or redeploy armoured vehicles and deliver supplies in heavily contested war zones where less well-armed and armoured craft would prove extremely vulnerable. Rapidly becoming a relied-upon workhorse of the Legions, a Thunderhawk transporter can carry 2 Rhino-sized vehicles or a single Land Raider-sized vehicle. It can also be used to carry an underslung supply pod and other useful equipment, such as a winch system for recovering drop pods after a battle deployment. The Legion Felblade Super Heavy Tank. Based upon the same standard template construct pattern as the Baneblade and Deathhammer Super Heavy tanks, which form the mainstay of the vast armoured brigades of the Imperial Crusade Army, the Felblade was a more advanced variant that first saw widespread service, particularly in the Space Marine Legions, in the last decades before the nightmare of the Heresy. The Felblade was most notable for its use of both Mechanicum atomantic arc reactor technology and a reinforced Metaplas alloy chassis superior to that of the Baneblade, and also the employment of an advanced accelerator cannon as its primary armament. All fruits of technologies restored to humanity by the later conquests of the Great Crusade. The Legion Thunderhawk Gunship. The Thunderhawk gunship was a development of the later Great Crusade, intended to bridge the gap in size and capacity between smaller designs, such as the Storm Eagle, and the larger and more costly Stormbird and Argo dropships. Designed to operate in atmosphere and void space, it combined the roles of orbital troop lander, heavy gunship, and medium bomber, and proved a highly successful addition to a Legion's fleet. With the outbreak of the wars of the Horus Heresy, both sides ramped up production of their Thunderhawks to meet the ongoing demands of the war. The Space Marine Legion Falchion Super Heavy Tank Destroyer. The Falchion utilises a potent weapon combining technologies used in the Felblade and the Shadow Sword Super Heavy Tank. The Falchion's twin-mounted volcano cannon is one of the most powerful vehicle-mounted anti-tank weapons in the Imperium's arsenal, and it requires such an investment in resources to construct just a single example that its use is limited to the Legion's Astartes. Even then, the Falchion is so rare that most legions maintain but a handful, reserved for use against the largest of enemy war machines. The Falchion was developed long before the outbreak of the Horus Heresy, and as such, its prey was not the enemy titans it would later see such extensive combat against. As the Great Crusade expanded ever outward, the expeditionary fleets encountered a staggering array of foes, some of whom were of a truly gargantuan scale. The formless overlord beings of the Poison Wretch were so massive they could crush entire armies with their bulk, but they were set to ravening flame by the touch of the Ultramarines Falchion's volcano cannons. When the gravity-defying mountain fortresses of the Thulos Deeps rejected compliance, a company of Iron Hands Falchions burned them and their occupants from the skies, scattering all to rubble, such that no stone was left standing upon another. The Legion Typhon Heavy Siege Tank. Named for the great beast of Terran myth, this siege tank was developed by the Martian Mechanicum simultaneously with the Spartan, with which it shares a basic hull, armour and chassis design. The Typhon is a mobile gun platform of prodigious strength and carrying capacity, designed to operate a single massive piece of siege artillery, the Dreadhammer cannon. The design itself was created in response to a request from the Primarch Perturabo of the Iron Warriors, and also with his direct involvement, who demanded a war engine created for the Space Marine legions that could rapidly deploy such fortress-breaking firepower to the battle line at speeds greater than the slow crawl of the Imperial Army's heavy batteries. The Typhon was the result. Many observers have labelled it as little more than an upscaled Vindicator in design, and while in some ways this may be true, few can deny its utterly brutal effectiveness in action. The Legion Mastodon Heavy Assault Transport. The Mastodon is one of the heaviest assault transports in the arsenal of the Legion's Astartes, and one reserved for use against the most heavily fortified positions. Several times the size of a Land Raider, its transport bay can carry up to 40 Space Marines through the most perilous of battlefields, and protect them even from enemy titans. The Mastodon's primary role is to deliver these troops directly into the breach created with the Siege Melter Array mounted on its armoured prow. Few fortifications can withstand this fearsome weapon, and it is highly unusual for any foe manning such positions to withstand its blinding fires. The legionaries passing through the melted stone, steel and flesh to press directly into the heart of the enemy positions. Although every legion possessed Mastodons, they were used only sparingly during the later Great Crusade. Deploying them was a major operation in itself, and so they tended only to be utilised in protracted siege operations, where one or more Entire legions had amassed overwhelming force to destroy a foe no other was capable of engaging. As the wars of the Horus Heresy ground onwards, however, these heavy assault transports were used in increasing numbers as both sides committed every last effort to destroy utterly their hated foes. The Sokar pattern Stormbird. The Stormbird is a dedicated attack lander, developed from the various Warhawk and Nephirus class Stormbird assault transports utilised by the Indonesic bloc during the unification wars on ancient Terra, and adapted by the Emperor for his early legions. The Sokar itself was one of the later patterns developed, and was the design precursor to the smaller, more widely produced Thunderhawk gunship. It was conceived as a specialised, high durability orbital assault craft, almost a mobile bastion and firebase, which could land a Space Marine strike force and withstand heavy ground fire while its passengers forced a landing zone. To this end, the Sokar's design features all-round gun turrets and particularly dense composite armour plating comparable to a main battle tank. It is further protected by void shield generators, which it can extend to protect disembarking troops and war machines. Multiple thruster units ensure that even if several engines are damaged, the Sokar is still airworthy, making it a powerful, if somewhat ungainly flyer. The howl of these huge engines is quite distinctive, even over the din of battle, and along with the bloodshed that follows its appearance, it has earned the Sokar the informal name of the Deathbird among the Imperialist auxilia.